Revealed, she cleaned dishes at the party, unknowingly married to the mansion's incredible owner. Emily burned another pot of chili on the stove that night. She could hardly think straight. The invitation lay on the dining table, the gold lettering reflecting her slight pulse of anxiety. A mansion party. Millionaires flaunting their wealth. Her deep breaths barely calmed the chaos of expectations thrumming in her chest. She was just a waitress, a single mother of 2 wild kids, trying to juggle bills and dreams. Who was she to step into a world like that? Yet as she glanced over at her kids, giggling as they chased each other around the living room, she felt the breath of possibility igniting a smoldering hope. Maybe it was time to break from the confines of her day-to-day grind. For once, maybe she could carve out a moment to feel alive. With trembling hands, she slipped into a graceful dress she saved for special occasions. The fabric felt like a second skin. As she arrived, the mansion loomed over her, a beautiful beast framed by twinkling lights. Laughter poured from its golden windows, a stark contrast to the soft sounds of her quiet suburb. Step by step, her heart raced. She felt out of place, yet exhilarated. Inside, the air buzzed with sparkling conversation and clinking glasses. But all Emily could think about was the stack of dishes piled high in the kitchen, her duty calling. Even when she dropped half a champagne flute, sending it crashing to the floor, no one batted an eye. This wasn't her scene, but she grinned through the embarrassment, grabbing a dishcloth and getting to work. Ironically, she felt a sense of comfort as she scrubbed plates, their warmth reminding her of home. That's when she bumped into him. Jake, he introduced himself, his mere presence lighting up the dim kitchen, a radiant contrast to the atmosphere that began to swallow her whole. He spoke lightly, as if the burdens of the world didn't touch the skin he lived in. "You're doing an admirable job in here." As he shared stories of his humble beginnings, Emily felt a connection more palpable than any she had experienced before. They laughed together, swapping tales over sudsy pots, finding ease amidst a whirlwind of luxury. Time slipped, until every laugh punctuated a moment, forging a bond. She could tell he faced scrutiny from his snobbish peers. With each disparaging glance they threw in Jake's direction, tension coiled tighter around them. Whispers about Emily's background stung, comments that layered judgment upon their unexpected connection. Here she was, the waitress turned unwanted curiosity, and here he was, a self-made man caught between 2 worlds. Yet, as her kids faced their own battles, Emily's heart ached. Jake became a solace, stirring emotions she hadn't touched in years. Then, hovering on the brink of confession, she overheard a whispered conversation that shattered her resolve, questioning her worth and place in Jake's life. Her cheeks burned as doubt wrapped around her. Would true love fold beneath society's weight? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tears threatened to spill, Emily caught Jake's gaze across the room, his easy smile dimmed by the strain of judgment surrounding them. Would she let fear dictate her heart's path? In that charged moment, she stood at a crossroads, her heart racing with anticipation. He turned to walk away, and as she felt the winds of uncertainty swirl around her, Emily had one question hanging in the air. Would she chase after him, risking everything for love, or retreat into doubt? And shadows yet again. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she watched Jake walk away. The confidence that had once flowed so easily from her was now a distant memory. She felt small. Tension twisted in her stomach, reminding her of every time she had to fight just to keep her head above water. Just as she was about to retreat back into the shadows of the kitchen, some instinct pulled her feet forward. The clinking of glasses and laughter faded into a dull hum. With every step, the voices around her grew quieter, until it felt like they were no longer in the same world. "Jake!" Her voice trembled, but it broke through the noise, reaching him. He paused, turning slowly. When their eyes locked, the heaviness in her chest threatened to shatter her resolve. "What's wrong?" he asked, moving toward her with a concerned expression that made her heart flutter. Emily's fingers fidgeted with the hem of her dress, the soft fabric grounding her as she fought against the tide of self-doubt. It's just who am I in this world? You know what they're saying. I'm just a waitress. I'm not the kind of person who belongs here. Jake stepped closer, closing the gap between them. The warm fragrance of his cologne wrapped around her like a soft embrace. No matter who you are, you're more than what they think, he said firmly. I see you. His words lingered in the air, and the sincerity lit a spark of courage within her. But don't you see it? I can't compete with this, she gestured around the opulent room, where crystal chandeliers glittered and laugh lines deepened on the faces of the elite. I'm not part of this life. He reached out, grabbing her hands, grounding her in that moment. You shouldn't have to compete with anyone. You have a light that shines brighter than any chandelier in this room. You make my world brighter, and I want to know you. Not the version they think they see, but the you beneath the surface. In that moment, hope blossomed. She could feel it seep into the cracks of her heart, pushing back the fears that threatened to pull her under. You really mean that? Jake nodded, his eyes steady and unwavering. Absolutely. But it's your choice, Emily. Do you want to let them dictate your worth, or will you claim it for yourself? Her heart raced again, but with determination this time. I want to choose myself. With a fire ignited inside her, she felt the weight of the world lessen. Their connection, forged in the simplest of moments, had grown into something formidable. She couldn't let fear win. Not now. Not after everything they shared. A soft smile crept onto her face. The corners of Jake's lips mirrored the joy she felt. Just then, their moment was interrupted by a group of polished guests who strolled into the kitchen, eyes narrowing at the sight of their joined hands. Emily's stomach dropped again, tension coiling like a spring. Look who's slumming it, a voice sneered, dripping with condescension. As laughter erupted, her heart sank like a stone. Jake's expression hardened, but he didn't release her grip. Without thinking, Emily pulled closer to him. Let them talk, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. I'm not going to hide anymore. Jake's gaze softened. That's the spirit. But as they stood tall amidst the judgment, a new doubt crept in. Could they really weather the storm of disapproval? And as Emily embraced her newfound resolve, another question lingered, desperately seeking an answer. What would it take to break the shackles of perception and truly step into the light of their love? Emily stood with Jake, her heart racing as the laughter of the guests washed over them like cold water. Each scoff and murmur felt like a sharp blade. She squeezed his hand tighter, trying to draw strength from the warmth radiating between their palms. It was as if they were enveloped in a bubble, a stark contrast to the harsh scrutiny swirling around them. Come on, Jake finally said, dragging her away from the chaos of judgmental stares. He led her to a quieter corner of the kitchen, the air heavy with the scent of decadent dishes and lingering spices. Are you okay? He asked softly, concern etched across his features. His sincerity pierced through her anxiety, reminding her of the promise she had just made to herself. I am. She hesitated, searching for the truth within the confusion boiling in her mind. It's overwhelming. I thought I was over this. You know? The way people look at me. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. What they think doesn't define you. You've poured your heart into every plate you've served. You're more than a job title. Emily's thoughts spiraled into memories of endless shifts, the quiet nights spent washing dishes, and the kind smiles she shared with customers who became friends. But how do I show them who I really am? By being you, Jake urged, his gaze unwavering. Show them you're not afraid. You don't have to fit their mold. You can shape your own. Emboldened, she took a deep breath. Right. I'm not just a waitress. I'm Emily, and I deserve to be here just like anyone else. Jake beamed, pride lighting up his eyes. Exactly. Let us face them together. Before she could respond, the group from earlier made their way to the kitchen entrance again, this time with an air of authority. It was too late to turn back. They launched into a barrage of barbs and dismissive remarks, one woman using her perfectly manicured hand to point in their direction. Seriously, Jake? She mocked. This is what you've chosen? Do you really think bringing her here makes you one of us? Jake stood taller, anger brewing beneath the surface, and Emily felt the surge of resistance rise within her. You know what? She interrupted, confidence flooding her voice as she stepped forward. I'm more than your expectations. Just because I didn't grow up with the same privileges doesn't mean I don't belong. The mutterings halted. Surprise flickered across their faces, like startled deer in the headlights. Jake leaned in closer, his expression a mix of admiration and pride. The woman who had spoken first smirked but faltered, not ready for Emily's fierce response. Interesting, she said, although her voice lacked conviction. Let us see how long that fire holds. Longer than you think, Emily replied, her heart pounding with defiance. The shift in energy was palpable. She could almost feel the judgment lift, if only slightly. The guests exchanged unsure glances. Emily turned away, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She caught Jake's eye, and for the first time since stepping into the limelight, she felt truly liberated. But just as relief washed over her, a familiar figure entered the kitchen. The room fell silent again. The sudden tension gripped Emily's chest when she realized who it was. Oh no, she whispered. Jake followed her gaze, his expression shifting from support to confusion. What? He asked, his voice softening. That's my boss, and he doesn't know I'm here, Emily said, her voice barely audible. What did this mean for her and Jake? Would her secret change everything? Emily's heart plummeted as she locked eyes with her boss, Mr. Langston. His expression was a mix of surprise and disapproval, and that alone knotted her stomach. This was not how she had envisioned her night. Hadn't she just taken a stand? Now it felt like she was about to be crushed beneath the weight of her own choices. Emily, Mr. Langston's voice sliced through the kitchen chatter, and she saw a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. What are you doing here? The guests nearby shifted nervously, their earlier taunting morphing into hushed whispers. Jake stiffened next to her, sensing the impending storm. Attending, Emily replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. I figured, why not have a night out? His brow furrowed. You're supposed to be working, not mixing with guests. The disdain dripped from his words like poison. She could feel her cheeks heat, not from embarrassment, but from indignation. This was her chance to prove herself. And what did he know of her struggle? Jake stepped forward, his voice steady. Emily's here because she belongs. She deserves to be more than a dishwasher. She has dreams, and I stand by her. Mr. Langston narrowed his eyes. This isn't a place for employees, Jake. You know the policy. He turned back to Emily, his tone dropping to something conspiratorial, or maybe predatory. What will the others think when they see you here? The laughter of the partygoers echoed in the background, feeling suffocating. Emily's heart pounded. Suddenly, Jake was her anchor, and she leaned into him, grounding herself. What do I care what they think? She shot back, surprising even herself. I didn't come here to fit in a box. I came to be seen. A murmur spread through the crowd. For the first time, she felt their eyes shift from judgment to intrigue. And then she saw a smile creeping across Jake's face, a flicker of pride at her words, and his support seemed to lift her. This was not just a battle against her boss. It was a fight against everyone who had ever underestimated her. Mr. Langston appeared taken aback, the power he wielded faltering as the diners began to mutter among themselves. This is ridiculous, Emily. You will have consequences for this, he warned, but Emily was beyond fear. Consequences? Really? She challenged. The only consequence is living with a mask on, hiding who I am. Jake's hand squeezed hers tighter, and she could feel the warmth radiating back from him. She had to believe she was more than her circumstances, more than a job title. The energy in the room shifted, and she could sense the tide turning. But as she glanced around, she noticed the hesitant looks from some guests shift into ones of support, others flaring into disbelief. They had come to watch some kind of spectacle unfold, not expecting someone to stand up like this, least of all her. The tension in Mr. Langston's jaw tightened. We'll see how long that attitude lasts, he retorted, but the words were almost absent now. Emily felt Jake's fingers on her own, strong and reassuring. This was a defining moment, and she wouldn't back down. She was ready to fight for herself. Just as adrenaline began to fade, her boss opened the door, visibly frustrated. But before he left the kitchen, he turned back, his eyes narrowing. You have no idea what you're getting into, Emily, he said, his words echoing with threat. Maybe it's time you found out, she replied, heart racing. As he stepped away, Uncertainty draped itself over Emily like a heavy cloak. She had taken a stand, but the fight was only beginning. Would she have the strength to confront whatever came next? With a deep breath, she turned to Jake. What now? But his eyes were locked on the door, a frown forming as the murmurs of the crowd swelled again. Something was about to change, and deep down, she knew it was both thrilling and terrifying. What would the rest of the night hold? Would her audacity ignite a fire within her, or lead to a reckoning she had never anticipated? Emily's mind spun as she tried to catch up with the chaotic energy swirling around her. The tension in the air was almost palpable, a thick cloak that weighed heavily on her shoulders. The guest's eyes, once skeptical, now burned with curiosity. Jake stepped closer, sensing her need for steady ground. You faced him, Em, he said softly, admiration shining in his eyes. Not many people would have the guts to do that. Yeah. Well, Emily frowned, uncertainty creeping back in. What if this backfires? What if he tries to make me pay for it? Regret washed over her like surf, teasing at her resolve. Had she just opened a door that should have stayed shut? Let him try, Jake replied, his voice firm, laced with protective energy. It's time someone challenged him. You deserve more than he's ever given you. For a moment, uncertainty faded as she clung to his words. Jake had always seen potential in her, saw the dreams she yearned to chase. But the shadow of Mr. Langston loomed large, and the thought of retaliation sent a chill through her. The chatter of the crowd dropped into a murmur, heads turning toward the door where Mr. Langston had exited. Seconds ticked by like hours, making her stomach knot tighter. What was he planning? What was happening behind that door? Finally, Emily took a step into the room, drawing the attention of those present. She could sense their anticipation, and it stoked the fire within her. Facing a room full of doubtful eyes, she took a deep breath and plunged deeper into this new territory. You know, maybe I am here as more than just a dishwasher, she declared, her voice rising in confidence. Maybe I belong here just as much as anyone else. A ripple of applause cut through the crowd, and Emily's heart felt lighter for a split second. Had she truly connected with them? But before she could bask in that moment, the door swung open again. The mood shifted as Mr. Langston re-entered, his face a mask of anger, although it contorted with an almost desperate need to reassert control. You think a few cheers will change the reality of this place? He spat. This is a private event, and I won't let an employee taint it. You don't get to define me anymore. Emily shot back, feeling a swell of defiance. I'm tired of being viewed as disposable. The crowd shifted, some mouths open in shock at her boldness, but others nodded in agreement, approval weaving between the guests. Mr. Langston's face twisted into a sneer. How naive. You have no clue what it takes to run a business, to command respect. The threat in his eyes wasn't veiled, it was clear as day. Respect is earned, not demanded, she countered, a newfound strength surging from deep within. I'm done being afraid of you. Even as his jaw clenched, Emily sensed a flicker of doubt ripple across the faces in the room. Maybe she was striking a nerve, but then Mr. Langston stepped closer, his voice dropping dangerously low. This isn't over, Emily. You're playing a game you have no chance of winning. Jake tightened his grip on Emily's hand. That's where you're wrong. She's not playing anymore. She's winning. The room held its breath. In that moment, the world seemed to swell. Emily felt her heartbeat thunder in her ears, the weight of the moment almost too heavy to bear. As Mr. Langston stared down at her, the energy shifted again, becoming electric. She had walked through the fire of her fears, and now she refused to step back. But as she met the steely gaze of her boss, doubt buzzed in her mind. What was this battle really about? Just then, a figure moved forward from the crowd, a stranger whose presence commanded immediate attention. Emily's breath caught in her throat, heart racing with a combination of excitement and trepidation as the lights dimmed slightly and the new arrival stepped into the spotlight. Who was this person, and what would they bring to the unraveling drama of the night? The spotlight illuminated the figure, revealing a tall woman with striking silver hair and piercing blue eyes. Her presence seemed to pull the air from the room, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was someone important. As silence washed over the crowd, anticipation crackled like static. Who are you? Emily whispered, almost too softly to hear. But beneath the question was a wave of curiosity laced with unease. She felt a mix of emotions surge through her: hope, fear, and a tingle of possibility. The woman stepped forward, exuding strength and grace. "My name is Veronica Steele," she announced, her voice steady and commanding. "And I have a long history with Mr. Langston." Emily's heart raced. Langston had a history? What kind? The guests seemed transfixed by the woman, their expressions caught somewhere between intrigue and apprehension. What was she here to reveal? Veronica's gaze locked onto Emily's, and something in her eyes sparked recognition. "It's time for you to learn the truth, Emily," she said, her tone urgent. "Your past is woven into the very foundation of this place." "What do you mean?" Emily asked, her voice shaking slightly. The crowd held its breath, leaning forward into the tension. Langston's face darkened, the anger shifting to a mix of disbelief and dread as he took a wary step back. "You don't know what you're talking about, Veronica," he hissed, his bravado faltering. "This has nothing to do with her. You need to leave." "Oh, but it has everything to do with her," Veronica replied, her voice rising above the growing restlessness in the crowd. "Because Emily is more than just an employee. She belongs here in ways you didn't even consider." Emily's mind raced. Belong here? Her family had always been on the outskirts of wealth and privilege. Could this stranger really know something that could change everything? "What are you trying to say?" Jake urged, his grip still tight on her hand, grounding her amidst the whirlwind. Veronica inhaled deeply, as if steeling herself for the impact of her words. "Emily, you are the daughter of a woman who lived in this mansion many years ago. A woman Mr. Langston wronged in ways that echo into the present." Shock rippled through Emily, sending a jolt through her body. What? How could that be? The pieces of her life had always felt disconnected, but now a thread began to weave them together. Langston's facade cracked, the tension in his shoulders visibly tightening. "No, that is not possible," he shouted, desperation clawing at his voice. "You're lying." But the certainty in Veronica's eyes spoke volumes. There was truth to her words, an undeniable gravity that pressed down on Emily's chest. Anger, confusion, betrayal, they swirled inside her like a hurricane. "Emily," Veronica continued, her voice softer now but unwavering, "there is so much more at stake than you were ever taught to believe. The legacy of your mother and the choices made by men like Langston have kept you in the dark for too long." The room shifted around Emily, the air thick with tension and whispers. She could sense the energy crackling, feel the anticipation weaving through the crowd. Jake squeezed her hand tighter, as if he could share his strength, urging her forward. "You don't have to face this alone," he whispered, grounding her as uncertainty washed over her. "I need to know the truth," Emily breathed, her heart pounding. "I need to understand what it all means." Veronica stepped closer, her expression softening. "Then let us uncover it together." As they locked eyes, a spark of determination ignited within Emily. She had crossed a threshold, one that could change everything she knew about her life, her worth, and her destiny. But as the crowd buzzed with anticipation, Emily's gaze flickered back to Langston. What would he do next? Just then, the lights flickered ominously, and the door at the back of the room creaked open. A cold draft swept through, sending a shiver down Emily's spine. Who or what would come through next to shape the outcome of this explosive revelation? A figure stepped into the room, momentarily silhouetted against the dim light. The sharp intake of breath from the crowd echoed like a drumbeat. Emily's heart skipped. Was it fear or curiosity? As the figure progressed into the light, the gasps transformed into an odd mix of shock and familiarity. "Mom," Emily uttered, scarcely able to believe her own eyes. The woman who had entered looked remarkably like Emily, with the same chiseled features and a cascade of dark hair framing her face. It was like staring into a mirror, yet one that seemed to blend different timelines into one overwhelming present. Veronica stepped back, her expression a mix of pride and sadness. "I had hoped you would have the chance to meet her, and now you have." Langston's face turned an alarming shade of pale as he rubbed a hand across his brow, his anger replaced by dread. "This isn't how it's supposed to go," he muttered under his breath, almost as if trying to convince himself of the words. Emily could hardly process everything happening at once. "Why are you here? Where have you been?" The questions flowed from her mouth in a rush, a flood of emotions threatening to drown her. The woman opened her mouth to speak, but paused, scanning the bewildered crowd. I didn't know how to find you. I thought I'd lost my chance. Tears shimmered in her eyes, and the vulnerability in her voice cut through the tension like a knife. Your mother, Veronica interjected gently, was confronted by choices that tore both your fates apart. But you deserve to hear the whole story. Emily stepped forward, heart hammering. But what choices? What did Langston do? As if ignited by her question, Langston cleared his throat and raised a hand defensively. This is all manipulation to turn you against me. You have no idea what's at stake. Maybe you're right, Emily said, her voice steadying as she faced Langston. But I need to know the truth. About my mother, about you. That word truth hung in the air, making Langston's expression shift between anger and indignation. The crowd was barely breathing, the anticipation palpable. The woman stepped closer to Emily, her hands trembling. Your grandmother worked in this mansion. She was a kind heart, but her life was marked by sacrifice. And as she hesitated, swallowing hard, I tried to build a life without the shadows of this place. But after I left, I realized leaving you behind was the worst choice I ever made. Emily felt a mix of confusion and compassion swirl within her. There was a woman standing before her, part of her history, and yet a stranger. What happened? For the first time, Langston looked uncertain, unraveling at the seams. He opened his mouth, but a voice from the back interrupted. Langston, you know it's time. A well-dressed man stepped forward, his face lined with age and wisdom, eyes like embers that had seen too much. You can't hide from your past any longer. It's time to own up to your decisions. Emily's heart raced. This was getting bigger than anything she had anticipated. What had Langston done that was so terrible? And who was this new figure, with a new tension in the room? Emily's breath hitched. Was she stepping further into a trap, or closer to discovering the heart of the matter? Emily, her mother's voice trembled, breaking into the thick atmosphere. You deserve to know everything. The truth is shouting out from the shadows. And in that moment, surrounded by witnesses to her past and her uncertain future, Emily took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. But would the truth be a blessing or a curse? What choice would she make once all was revealed? Emily's heart raced as she stared at the well-dressed man. His presence felt like a harbinger of everything she had tried to understand about her life. A voice of authority replaced the whispers in the room, pressing heavily on her shoulders. Who are you? Emily managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm Joseph, he said, his tone calm yet firm. I've been a part of this mansion's history longer than any of you realize. He paused, scanning the crowd before locking his gaze on Langston. But our focus isn't on me. It's time for you to confront your past, Langston. Langston took a step back, the color draining from his face. You don't know what you're asking. This isn't the time, it's precisely the time, Joseph replied, cutting him off. Your past is entwined with both of these women. You owe them the truth. Emily glanced at her mother, who stood trembling, a mixture of hope and fear etched all over her face. What truth? She blurted out. What did he do? Joseph took a breath, gathering his thoughts. Years ago, decisions were made with devastating consequences. Choices that tangled fate like threads of a frayed tapestry. Langston was given a chance that he let slip away. Langston's jaw clenched. No, Joseph, you don't understand. If you tell them, you might finally set everyone free, Joseph interrupted softly, his voice a soothing balm against the rising storm of emotions in the room. The crowd stirred, whispers echoing the conflict. Emily's stomach twisted. She felt caught, desperate to understand how all this interconnected. Mom, she urged, turning her focus back to her mother. Please, I need to know. Her mother's hesitance faltered. It started long before you were born. Her voice cracked slightly, drawing everyone in closer. I fell in love with Langston, before he was the man he is today. Things spiraled out of control, and we both made choices that placed you in danger, Joseph added, his voice steady as he kept the focus on Langston. Choices that led Veronica to leave. You thought you were helping, but in truth, you caused pain that rippled through generations. Emily felt her heart clench painfully in her chest. Was I a mistake? The question slipped from her lips, a raw note of betrayal hanging in the air. She could hardly bear the weight of his silence. Langston looked pained, as if her words had physically hit him. You were never a mistake. I loved your mother, but I was blinded by ambition. I didn't realize what I was sacrificing until it was too late. And now you want to just tell me? Lay it all at my feet. Emily's voice shook, filled with anger and hurt. Joseph stepped forward, keeping his gaze steady on her. This is not just about Langston and the choices he made. It's about generations before you. About how the past, every shadow and light defines who we are today. Emily looked at her mother, saw the vulnerability in her eyes. What does that even mean for us now? Joseph raised a hand, calming the noise. It means you have a choice too, Emily. You can break free from the past's chains or let them bind you. A silence enveloped the room, tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Emily could feel the weight of everyone's stares, probing her to make a decision. With emotions swirling, she whispered, "What do I choose to become?" Just then, the sound of a door creaking open echoed through the space, drawing all attention away. Every eye turned, heartbeats synchronizing in their rhythm of suspense. A shadow slipped in, cloaked in mystery, disrupting everything. Who were they, and how did they fit into this tangled web of revelations? Emily took a deep breath, knowing more was yet to come. A figure stepped into the room, the soft light casting an ethereal glow around them. Emily squinted, trying to make out the details. It was a woman, young but worn, with dark hair and eyes that held a storm of emotions. She wore a simple dress, the sort that blended too easily into the background. Yet somehow, she stood at the center of attention like a lighthouse in a fog. "Who are you?" Joseph asked, breaking the charged silence. The woman hesitated, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. "Maya," she said, her voice barely above a whisper but filled with determination. I've been looking for answers." Langston's eyes widened in recognition, an expression of guilt crossing his face. "Maya? I never thought you'd come back." Emily's heart pounded. Maya seemed connected to the knot of secrets attached to Langston. "What do you know?" Emily pressed, her anxiety palpable. The room felt electric, every person on edge, poised for the truth. Maya swallowed hard, stepping fully into the light. "Years ago, I was part of this place, your lives, but no one knew who I was. I washed the dishes at parties like this one. I was invisible." Her eyes drifted toward Langston. "But I wasn't just anyone. I was your wife, Langston." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. "What?" The word escaped her lips in disbelief. "You were married to him?" "Yes," Maya replied, the sadness in her voice heavy. "We were married young, but it fell apart when everything spiraled out of control. Your ambition, Langston. I was just a distraction, a footnote in your grand plans. You left me behind for more wealth, more power." Langston looked pained, his face a canvas of regret. "Maya, I don't," she interrupted, a spark of defiance in her tone. "You didn't see me, just like you didn't see the consequences of your choices." Emily's mind raced. This was a revelation she hadn't anticipated. The threads of her life suddenly began to weave a complicated tapestry: love, betrayal, ambitions. It felt overwhelming. "What did all of this mean for us?" she asked, her voice shaky. Maya took a step closer, locking eyes with Emily. "You have the chance to see more than I did, and to choose differently. Your father is blinded by his greed, and it will eat him alive if he doesn't confront it. Don't let the past dictate your future." Joseph nodded, echoing her sentiment. "Emily, this is the moment. You can rewrite the narrative that's been handed to you, but it requires courage." Sweat beaded on Emily's forehead. A choice lay before her, a choice she wasn't sure she was ready to make. The past loomed heavy, darkened by secrets and pain. The air crackled with tension, charging every unspoken question swirling in the room. "What will you do?" Maya asked softly, her gaze piercing through the chaos, seeking Emily's resolve. With a racing heart, Emily glanced between Langston and Maya. "I don't know what does confronting the past really look like." As she spoke, the front door swung open with a sudden bang, and another figure emerged, this one cloaked in deep shadows. Who could they be? What other truths lay hidden just beneath the surface? Emily steeled herself, ready to face whatever was next, knowing whatever it was, it would change everything. Emily stood there, caught in the whirlwind of her life, the air electric with every shared breath, every heartbeat woven into the fabric of that moment. Her heart raced like a drum as she looked from Langston to Maya, their past intertwining like roots of a great tree, hidden beneath the surface, yet more significant than she ever imagined. The shadows in the corner shifted again, revealing a man whose strong presence filled the room. Everyone turned, the tension doubling as he stepped forward. "I'm David," he introduced himself, his voice smooth yet commanding. "And I'm here because I know everything that led us to this moment." Emily's mind spun. Who was he? What role did he play in this evolving saga? The last figure she needed to unravel the truth, yet somehow, she sensed the weight of his presence. Langston's face twisted with fury, but also fear. "You shouldn't be here." David squared his shoulders. "I'm here because it's time for the truth to rise, Langston. You can't bury the past anymore." The words struck everyone like a bell ringing clearly through a blur of confusion. Emily's fingers tightened around Jake's, drawing strength from his constant support. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and dread. David stepped closer, his gaze unwavering as he spoke. "I'm here to expose the lies and the secrets you've tried to bury, Langston. Not just for Emily and Maya, but for everyone you've wronged." Emily felt the room lean in, anticipation hanging thickly in the air. David took a deep breath. Years ago, this mansion thrived on the backs of lies and deceit. Ambitions turned treacherous. Everyone desired wealth, but it often meant stepping over those they loved enough. Langston barked, trying to control the chaos around him. "You can't silence the truth, Langston." David's voice rang loud and clear, piercing through the facade that had chained them all for too long. "You chose power over love, and it cost your family everything." Emily's breath hitched, the pain washing over her in waves. She had spent her life in the shadows, shaped by choices made without her consent. Slowly, her heart began to settle on a single truth: she would not be defined by this whirlwind of secrets. "Emily," her mother implored softly, tears shimmering in her eyes, "you are not just a reflection of our past. You're a beacon for a future untainted by fear. You hold the power to break these chains." David nodded in agreement. "You can reclaim your narrative. The truth is not a curse, it's your sword." Taking a step forward, Emily felt the weight lift from her shoulders. "I am more than a dishwasher," she declared, her voice echoing with newfound strength. "I have been shaped by hardship, but I will not let it define me. You can't keep using my past against me, Langston. I deserve a life built on my terms." As she spoke, the crowd felt electric, drawn into the clarity of her message. Whispers turned to murmurs of agreement, as Emily's heart flickered with hope. She looked back at Jake, whose proud smile ignited her resolve. Emily Langston started, desperation lacing his voice, but she cut him off. "No, this is where the cycle ends. I will write my own story, not one dictated by your fearful grasp." With every word, she could feel the judgment of the elite unravel around her, replaced with respect for her courage. Joy rippled through her as she noticed Maya's eyes brighten, seeing hope kindling where none had existed before. "You're so much more than you know, Emily. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Emily took a deep breath, embracing what was unfolding within her. "I will find the truth about my mother, about my worth. And you, Langston, will answer for what you've done." Just then, David stepped toward her. "And you won't have to do it alone. We'll uncover everything together." In that moment, Emily felt clarity, the tangled threads untangling themselves. She was ready to embrace her family history and her own identity with pride. As the air buzzed with energy, the crowd began to clap softly, building into a wave of applause. Emily blinked through tears of joy, radiating thankfulness to those who believed in her. As she turned to face Langston one last time, the resolve in her heart trembled with newfound strength. "This is not the end for me. It's just the beginning." She felt Jake's hand tighten around hers, the unbreakable bond of love serving as her foundation. Together, they stepped away from the shadows, ready to confront whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, they could forge a path, a new one where judgments faded and love became the light guiding their steps. In an instant, everything shifted. This moment was theirs. No more doubting, no more hiding. The future was bright, and it was waiting. You need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories that unfold next. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us keep this vibrant community alive. Don't wait, not even one more second. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to feel this powerful transformation. Your voice matters. Comment on your feelings about this ending. We're eager to hear your thoughts.